Hello and welcome to the Durham Talents channel. My name is Jesse Durham. I'm very excited for this installment in our interview series where we're going to be having a conversation with a fellow practitioner of the infinite banking concept, someone who's implemented this concept into their own personal life, but furthermore, with a colleague that's a professional in this space. Let me go back to when you're getting those first policies, you and your husband each started right out of the gate with one policy each. And I think it's so important that folks do start where it's appropriate for them.
Right,
Individuals,
right,
marriages, nobody's the same. Everybody should start
right.
where it's appropriate for them. We got our first policy on me. It was probably 6, 8 months, something. It was less than a year. And we did get a policy on my wife as
hmm
well.
hmm
But how did you, because you already threw the number out there, and we can tag that even to the time, that's significant dollars.
It is.
How did you guys approach, because this is a big question for prospects of ours, right?
Mhm.
Folks that we talk with, that we're trying to help them understand this concept, and they're trying to decide what's an appropriate amount of premium for themselves. How did you guys approach that number? How did you get there? What did you talk about? Explain that, please.
Well, basically, when our mentors sat down with us, we began to look at, what was our goal. At that time, we were your typical, married couple with debt of
Mm-hmm.
the yin yang, basically.
Sure.
We had automobile debt, we had credit card debt, we had a mortgage at this time, so they kind of sat down and literally kind of mapped out, if you will. I'll never forget, it was a spreadsheet, that they had kind of mapped out. Here's your debt, and basically based on the premium amount, here's when we can project that you will be out of debt, you will be back in control of
Mm-hmm.
your and our the first thing we wanted to get rid of at that time was our car loans. And so that was a big ticket item, because if I remember correctly, I think it wasn't too long before that we had purchased, a car for me. And so I think that was the motivation in terms of the size of the premium. And I totally agree with you in terms of it's going to be different for everybody. That's the beauty about working with someone who kind of specializes in the infinite banking space, because the goal is not to have to come up with new money. The goal is to redirect money that's already going away from you.
That's
and
right.
and that's kind of where you want to sit down with someone who can kind of map out and then give a timeline as to when we can get back in control of the money that's going away from you. And so that for us, that kind of came up also at the time. My husband and I, we had built up a business that we had, because by this time we got into network marketing. We were very successful. So we had built up, some savings. So we had some money that was just sitting in the bank as well. So we just kind of redirected those dollars, instead of taking those dollars and immediately paying off, our our cars or whatever. We directed, she explained to us how we can actually make those dollars more efficient by first depositing them inside of an insurance policy and then going after the debt. And so that's, for us, that's what we've done. Now, subsequent policies, we have other policies. I've got policies on my grandkids where the premiums are like a couple $1,000s, so it's just whatever the situation warrants at the time, and based on the budget that a person has at the time, then that's how we start. And one of the things that I tell people is that this is your first policy. It's not going to be your last. So,
Hmm.
we start where you're at right now, and then we can build from there. You're going to have a second policy, a third policy, a fourth policy, and each one of those policies may get bigger and bigger in terms of your premium dollars.
Sure, sure. I'm certain that you have now, but I wonder perhaps what it was like and when it happened that you maybe made a connection between the Robert Kiyosaki part of your mind saying, let assets pay for liabilities. And
Exactly.
then you're hearing someone who's your mentor on infinite banking saying, let's make these dollars more efficient. You've got lazy dollars here. You've got dollars that are inefficiently, being cash flowed out there. They're not touching an asset. That connection between those two
Exactly.
different voices in your mind.
They
How is
were.
that? Right.
They were. I realized that's why I say Robert Kiyosaki's book was the starting. It opened the mindset. And once the mindset is in open, then you're going to start receiving information from different, I should say, other areas that are going to line up. And it did, with what Robert Kiyosaki is always about assets. You are investing those dollars, so those assets can then, pay for he calls them doodads that you want.
Right.
Um,
Sure.
but but the goal is to get your dollars to work for you, and that's really what infinite banking is doing. Is your dollars are more efficient inside this tool than it is sitting, saving up in Bank of America, Wells Fargo, whatever. And so there was that connection. It's like a building block, between, what I learned from Robert Kiyosaki to why we were even open to learning more about this infinite banking concept.
Sure. And I love the fact that you said in the beginning when you got your first policies that you knew it was a good thing that you were doing, and but you still also had that same moment of we just put 40,000, we
Exactly.
just put serious
What
money
did we
into this
do?
new
Yeah,
thing that we're doing while knowing that it's a good thing. I don't know everything about my marriage, but I know it's good and I know it's for
exactly.
me and I know that I want to keep going. You know what I'm saying? I don't know
Exactly.
everything there either, but I'm certainly glad that I started and
Exactly.
it's continued to get better for me. And I just think that, infinite banking is one of those things. It's called the infinite banking concept for a reason. There's
Right.
always another level to our mentality, to our application of the process itself, everything, even growing and scaling
Yeah.
your private banking system by getting more policies
Mhm.
like you've described. Okay, so you got your first couple of policies. Was there a big hurdle once you had the thing to using it, to beginning the process, actually financing something? I mean, how did y'all use
Right.
y'all's first couple of
Right.
policies?
Yeah, the first policies, we actually, like I said, our goal was to pay off our car. So
Mm-hmm.
shortly after the policies were put in place, our mentors taught us, how we take that first loan. And I'm gonna try to dig up that spreadsheet. I think that would be really good.
That would be neat to look at
Yeah,
again.
I gotta search for that spreadsheet. But to basically take our first loans and then to pay off our policies. And then she taught us, how to set up, the amortization schedule and then basically pay ourselves back. So it like I was going through the mechanics of it,
Mm-hmm.
but I didn't necessarily completely understand it.
Okay.
That's what I always tell people is like you don't always understand it initially, but as you use your policy, it becomes clearer and clearer and clearer. So It for me again, I'll say I'm the slow learner. I'm the one that takes a little bit more time to digest something. So it took me a minute, but in our family, I pretty much handled the finances. So, I worked with it. But eventually we paid off our cars, and then I think we paid off our credit cards first, and then we paid off our cars
Okay.
next, were the primary things. And what I will say is when that happened, there was such a level of freedom that came off my shoulders, that a level of peace that came over me, because for all your I'm gonna say, for all your women out there who kind of handle the finances, we're constantly looking at, okay, do we have enough money? And most of the times, we were at that time where we had more month than we had money, so you're
Mm-hmm.
always trying to juggle, you're always trying to, to some extent rob Peter to pay Paul, so to speak. And the thing about when you have all this debt, there's a heaviness that is upon you, and that heaviness is you're in some respects living paycheck to paycheck, and that, hey, if that paycheck doesn't come in or doesn't come, and at the time my husband was more commission based, so with AT&T, because he worked on the sales side, working with companies, and selling the long distance or whatever. He'd have to explain that part, but so the paycheck wasn't always the same every month,
Sure. Yep.
so when I'm, juggling, okay, we got to pay, this credit card is coming due, or this one's, this bill is coming due, that creates sometimes an anxiety, or sometimes a heaviness. But I remember when we, made this, we did take money that we had sitting in savings basically, and we paid for the premium. But then within, I don't know, I'm gonna say a couple of weeks, we turned around and requested a loan, and we paid off different things. And once that happened, there was such a freedom, because I was no longer, there wasn't an obligation to the credit card company, or the car loan company. I remember when we got the congratulations, your car is paid in full or whatever, it was like, wow, that is so freeing and so exciting. And now I can adjust our budget based upon what we could do to pay ourselves back. So there was a freedom that happened at that time. And for me, that was really exciting. That's what kind of kept me going. Okay, I want to know more. I want to understand more. And to this day, we are, my husband and I, literally, I control our entire banking process. And I still have that same freedom today. And we're like, what, almost 20 years down the road, I guess, something like that. And I still have that freedom now. I'm not beholden to the credit card company. I'm not beholden to some finance company. I'm not beholden to the bank. Literally, I control our entire debt load through our banking process. So that's one of the things that I do say, is that you get control back, when you do this process. You begin to realize, I think that's what came to me, early on, was the fact that I was now in control of every dollar that came into our hands, and
Mm-hmm.
where it's going to go. I get to direct where it's going to go. It's not, you know car company that says you must send me by the 15th, $300 a month or $400 a month. I personally, just my personality, I'm a control freak. I don't like anybody else controlling my stuff. you know
Sure.
so for me, it just gave such a level of freedom. financially.
Right. And I know that we're not unique in having that starting point of maybe we've got some savings, but they're in these systems or these programs where there are these terms and conditions. And maybe we do own or we have possession of some things, but there's collateral involved, whether it's a home or a car. And yeah, if we don't make that
Right.
payment by the 15th, they will pull that out from under
Exactly.
us. And,
Exactly.
we do have these debts. We do have these conventional plans and the freedom you've mentioned, the control. I've brought up the factor of collateral. What about guarantees, knowing that we can have
Mhm.
guaranteed growth where we do decide to
Right.
capitalize our money? And there are all these different factors that can be under this umbrella of
Mhm.
freedom that
Mhm.
you're talking about, under this umbrella
Exactly.
of control that you're talking about. And I think that's so relevant, not just on the financial side of things, because we are talking about people and we are talking about marriages and we are talking about homes where, it's purported that stress can be one of the biggest things that'll work against having a healthy marriage. And one of the biggest things at the top of the stress list happens to be the money, happens to be the finances. So
Exactly.
it's so very
Exactly.
relevant for all the things that
Mhm.
you've brought to my mind in hearing about your trajectory. All right. So let me ask another question then.
Mhm.
You've got your first couple of policies, you're using those policies. How did you guys approach getting to a third policy? What life event? What revelation? What did you have going on when you decided, it's actually time for us to add to what we're already doing?
Good question. And actually, our next policy came with our first grandbaby.
Okay.
That was our next policy that we put in place, because, well, in between there, well, I'll say the policies my husband and I control, but prior to our grandbaby, the next policies that were set up were for my sons. Both my sons have their own policies. So we began to teach them. They were kind of our first people,
Sure.
if you will. They were let's see, my youngest son was his sophomore year in college by that point. When we got his policy, I have to think about the timetable. Um, and then my oldest son had graduated college.
So they're for sure young adults, young
Right, they're
adults.
young adults, but theirs were the next policies that were set up, but they own those policies. We actually talked to them and taught them the infinite banking process. But the third policy that my husband and I did was our grandchild's policy.
Okay.
Our
Let me
first.
ask this then, Miss Robin, is you had your policies, you encourage your sons to get their own policies. So did that make them both the payers and the owners of those policies?
Yes, they are the payers
Wonderful.
and the owners of their own policies, mainly
Wonderful.
because we wanted them to learn. Because here's the thing that I talk about. My focus is working with families generationally. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
so the one thing that I wanted was for my sons to understand this infinite banking process, because one day we're not going to be here. And the cherry on top of all this infinite banking process is the death benefit that gets passed on, right? When it gets passed on, what does if you will, the next generation, what do they do with it? And
Sure.
so it was important for my husband and I that our boys understood the infinite banking process,
That
so
they pick up that mantle, right? Not just leave that mantle laying on the ground. Pick that mantle.
exactly, exactly. Because again, ultimately, we knew that one day we were going to have grandchildren, or we hoped that we were going to have grandchildren. And so we wanted to know that if the boys understood it, then it's something that, number one, they're going to be able to pass on to our grandchildren. But then also, it's something that they are going to use properly, once the death benefit is passed on. there's a place, they know what to do with them, so they were the next policies that we got set up, was their policies, and we wanted them to learn it, to learn how to use their policies. My husband and I's next policy was our first grandchild's policy.
Beautiful.
Because Nelson talks about, if, we as parents put it on our grandchildren, think of what that policy can do, compounding for the next 30, 40 years, of our grandchildren's life, So our first grandson we had, and that was a no-brainer, to put a policy on our first grandchild. Then the next one was our second, and then our third. And now we just had our fourth grandchild, which I'm already, I already talked to my youngest son. He has the newest grandchild. And it's like, okay, son, let's get things together. We want to start the policy on that grandchild as well. So that's how we've gotten subsequent policies. But I'm actually, after the first of the year, we will be taking out another policy on ourselves, so each one on ourselves. So I believe in it. I walk it, I breathe it, I live it, I operate in it. So having multiple policies, I have, no problem with it. And it's definitely the place that I want to, if you will, put money or park money or deposit money, is inside my policies versus sitting in a bank account.
Sure, sure. And it's just a natural progression when you use policies the way that you described, just you and your husband, accounting for the things that you already had, goals, plans, ambitions in life. You're going to do that. Okay, but we're doing it this way now as our own bankers. And when you do get to pay things off and you experience that freedom, of course, you want to perpetuate that to the next generation and the next generation. And you want to build on that system and you want to scale that system. And it will become obvious that, okay, we have a new family member. We need to start, that little privatized bank on that person in the family.
Exactly.
And then same thing. Hey, we accomplished these goals over here. We're keeping more of our money. We don't want that to build up anywhere too big, other than, well, maybe the next system, if that's, when it's appropriate for you to add on. So I love this. I love everything about it. I see so many avenues in this conversation where we could go down some others. But if you looked ahead, then you've already described some. You and your husband are looking at getting more policies probably at the start of the next year. And we're at the end of 2023 right now having this conversation. Just had another baby, recently born into the family. Congratulations. I love, so we have family meetings. We have regular family meetings, and I do use that opportunity for us to talk about infinite banking and having an intergenerational legacy where, again, for me, like you, financial education is at the forefront there. Because then it's just tools and the mechanics, like you already described, following on what you know to do. Money's just a tool. You need to know how to use it. Just like a hammer's a tool, you need to know how to use it. So is there anything else maybe on your radar looking ahead that you foresee in your own household or in the family at large, how infinite banking is impacting what you're doing?
Yeah, let me tell you, Jesse, and I said I was going to sit down and figure out exactly, because I have gone through my immediate family, and my husband and I have talked to each and every family member, starting with my mom and dad all the way down. Well, we have policies on the grandkids. They don't have a clue, but what I've looked at our own family, I didn't start out with this vision, but it has created the vision in me about creating generational family dynasties, banking dynasties. Okay. Because what I see now is, like, my mom and dad, they were in their, let's see, they're both in their 80s now. So they were in their, say, 60s, mid 60s, when they got their first policy, when we introduced them and they got the first policies. And
So
what was
we've gone down in the family tree and up in the family tree. I
exactly.
love it.
So my mom and dad both have policies, but they don't have policies on themselves because they were uninsurable. Okay. So
Okay.
this is one thing that I always say is that there's many ways to accomplish something. And so my dad has, policy on me, and he has policies on my sister's kids, two daughters, and then my mom has policy on my sister. So they own them, they control them, but we're the insured. My sister and I are the insured people.
That's right.
But they have policies, several policies. My sister and her husband have policies. There are policies on my nieces. There are policies on my sons. There's policies on our grandkids. So there's policies on my daughter-in-law, their wives. So we have a number of policies within our family. My long-term vision is really what I picked up from really Nelson Nash and my mentor, is where you build a family banking dynasty where nobody in the family has to go outside of the family's bank to finance the things of their lives.
That's right.
The vision I have is my grandchildren, when they're ready to go buy a house, they don't have to go to, the traditional bank, give blood, beg, and,
That's
and
right.
deal with all the terms or whatever. They have a number of banks that we can finance their, houses through, their cars through, the things that people want and need in life, we can finance it within the family. So to help family generationally understand infinite banking, think of the power that brings within that family dynamics. They never have to go out for anything. And then as each person, I always say we're all on a conveyor belt, and at one point we're going to fall off. When that person dies, that death benefit now comes back into, if you will, the family banking dynasty, and it just continues, to be there for each and every, family member that is involved. So my
Mm-hmm.
vision has really been to talk to families generationally, talk to mom and dad and say, here's why you want to look at this. You love your grandchildren and you want your grandchildren to have the financial freedom and understanding. Will start now, because think of something that's going to compound, 30, my grandkids are 10, 9, and 5, and the other one is like 7, 8 months old now. So they're all young. So if you think about it, if 30 years, 20 years, 30 years from now, what is that policy going to look like? What is it going to be when they need to go to college, or
Mm-hmm.
they need to, buy a car, or, they want to go off on a mission trip or something, where are they going to get the money, and then the goal is you're not going to give them the money. They're going to learn how to do the banking process themselves, so that's my big vision. When I'm talking to, I might be talking to, as a matter of fact, I'm working with a client now. It's the son, but now the son has introduced me to his mom, his parent, so now I'm talking to the mom, and that's the goal, is like, mom, let's get something on you. Let's get, son, let's get something on you. And then, oh, the son wants to do something for his newborn baby,
Sure.
So it, building generationally is really where we want to go after, because then that strengthens the entire the entire financial dynamics of a family. When something happens, or there's a financial need, we don't have to do chicken dinners or fish fry dinners or GoFundMe accounts or anything like that. we can handle that financial situation within the family banking dynasty.
That's right. That's right. It's what Nash described as a self-sustaining system
Mhm.
in his book. That's what you
Yeah.
can accomplish when you start thinking and planning and acting intergenerationally, like what you're describing and like what you're doing. So, Miss Robin, I could pursue so many different avenues. I want to pursue so many different avenues of things that we've touched on. But if I could ask you to share anything that would be encouraging to somebody who is maybe being exposed to this infinite banking concept for the first time, or they're still vetting it and they see this information, what would you encourage them with? What would you suggest that they consider?
Okay. Um, Number one, you've got to be open. What I realize is life insurance is nothing new. It's been around for over 100 years. It's solid, it's stable, it does what it's supposed to do. So that's not the issue, life insurance. It's the process of banking, using this tool for banking. That's where most of us, or I call mainstream America, we really don't understand. We don't connect with this process you're talking about. I understand life insurance. I understand death benefit. I understand, yeah, I pay into it. And one day when I die, there's a legacy for, my loved ones, but I don't understand this banking process. So one of the things I always tell people is you've got to be open to learning. You got to understand that you don't know what you don't know. And the banking process in itself isn't new either. It's not this shiny fangled tool that just came out of the box, yesterday. It has proven itself over and over and over and over again. So number one is be open. Number two, get educated. You've got to educate yourself about money and how money works. Number three, trust, to connect with the person, like the mentors who came into our lives. We didn't know them. They were, strangers before we met them, but we built up that trust relationship, and that I knew that they were okay and we were okay. We're going to be okay. We're going to figure this out. And then, get back in control, because the only reason that I believe mainstream America struggles financially is because there's so many different pressures, or what Nelson calls headwinds, against our dollars. Everybody and their mother is trying to separate you from your dollar. But
Mm-hmm.
the thing that I tell people is that you have to understand money that leaves your hands will stop working for you. It will start to work for somebody else, but it stops working for you. So the goal is that you've got to keep as many dollars under your control. You keep those dollars under your control, then those dollars can continue to work for you. And dollars that compound upon themselves is going to grow and put you in a much better financial position than you handing your dollars off to, every Joe Blow, Susie Lou that tells you, some magic potion is going to make you rich, So for me, that is what I've done. I am simple. I am one that I didn't go to school for finances. I went to school for electronics. I didn't grow up in a family of entrepreneurs or business, mindset per se. I was just one that was open to learning. And as I began to educate myself, then I did better with our money. I could probably do better than where I'm at now as I gain more knowledge, but I can say I'm doing better than what I was doing yesterday. So
Sure.
that's the thing that I would really encourage people. Listen, be open to learning, and then, educate yourself. Just grow the knowledge. Get Nelson's book. There's a ton of good books out there on being your own banker, get those books and just start reading and ask lots of questions. People like myself, I love it. I tell people all the time, ask me a ton of questions and then I keep asking me and keep asking me until you understand, because that's my ultimate goal, is for you to understand. Because once you understand, you now have the ability to turn around and teach your family members. And honestly, I think if we could create the movement of mainstream America having their own private banking systems, I think we could put these traditional banks definitely on high alert. Getting back in control of your money is the number one key. That's how you build wealth, is controlling your dollars.
I love that. Well, from myself, I can say that I can appreciate very much the time that you've described what you've done, your experience with infinite banking, how you've applied it in your life. I've already introduced you as a colleague in the space. So if someone wanted to get in touch with you, how could they do that, Miss Robin?
Well, basically, they can go to my calendar, and you might have to help me, Jesse.
And we can attach some links. You
Right.
can always let me know what you prefer as far as email contact, your calendar contact.
Yes.
But you
Yes.
talk
Yes.
with folks regularly all across the country. Like I've said already, you've been in this way longer than I have, both as someone who implemented infinite banking and someone who's a professional now helping other folks get started with infinite banking. So we can definitely attach some links.
Yes. Do that, because we changed to the new
We're
system.
all we're all working with technology such as it is now, right? And the links and these things change. We don't. We're still doing the same thing that we have been. We've been implementing infinite banking, and we've been helping other folks implement infinite banking. That's why I say I appreciate this so much, because folks that are just getting exposed to this idea can learn just like I am. You've been doing infinite banking longer than I have. I got started by reading the book and seeing a presentation in 2015. You'd already been started. You're already building a legacy and all these different kinds of things. And here I am gleaning from it. I know that other folks are as well. So we'll put some information out where folks can get in touch with you. Any last thoughts from you?
No, I just appreciate you doing this, Jesse, honestly, because the key is people have to be exposed. We have to learn, because nobody taught us these things. So I appreciate you doing these podcasts. And I'm the old girl on the block, meaning that I didn't grow up with social media and podcasts and all these different things. So I appreciate you doing this and getting the information out in front of people, encouraging people to just, connect with you and just to learn. These tools are very helpful. I didn't have any of these tools back in my day,
Right.
so it was phone calls, and, it was books, basically, or going to different seminars or whatever. So this is such a great platform to, a great way to get the knowledge and information in front of people. And I just appreciate you doing it. And I appreciate you even asking me to just share my thoughts. My thing is, I just really want to emphasize, guys, this is for you. Anybody can do this. You don't need to have any special knowledge, or you don't have to have a finance background or anything like that. You just got to take our hand, walk with us. We'll help you through it. And, our hope and our prayer is that we will help you to impact your family as someone helped us to impact our own. So that's what I would say, Jesse.
That's fantastic. And that's exactly right. We're both benefiting from where others have labored for our good as well. And that's one reason why I would want to have you on, because, I'm a prophet in my own country too. I know that it does good for people that maybe know me, but to hear the same message from somebody else that has been in it in a longer way and maybe a different way. And but it's the same thing, that you can be your own banker. You can have financial independence I appreciate you. It's been an honor for me, Miss Robin. I look forward to reconnecting. I'll make sure to get your links and contact information out to folks. But again, thank you so much. Hope you have a Merry Christmas. We're about to that time of year. God bless you and your family. Appreciate you.
Thank you, Jesse. I appreciate it.
Awesome. I hope that you enjoyed mine and Miss Robin's conversation on the infinite banking concept. If you would like to implement or know more about how to implement the infinite banking concept into your household or your business or your investing, then don't hesitate to reach out. I've got a free presentation to introduce you to a comprehensive introductory look at infinite banking and my calendar link all on our website, durhamtalents.com. This has been a great pleasure for me. Look forward to that next conversation. Have a great day. Take care.